Hi, welcome back. This is our third one in our series of some Gothic Halloween inspired cards. So today's one may be a little bit less mucking around, but we've got a little bit more complex card today with lots of masking and layering and stuff like that to make up a collage look that we'll then do with the blacks and the reds. And okay, let's see what we're going to use. So working with the Moon Mandala stamp and also the some of the moon shapes out of the phases of the moon set. Adding in some flowers with the Waterlily blossom and the Magnolia blossom. And I think out of the verses that go with the phases of the moon, I might be using one of those, but I'll wait and see how the card develops before I decide if I'm popping that one in or not. Now, we're also going to be doing some colouring with the Uniqolour markers, brush markers, our inks. Versamark for embossing will be embossing in white, and also the Versafine Clair black. So I've already cut masks. Now I'm working on the Couture Creations glass media mat and also using my precision press. This is really important for how we are going to be multi-layering these images so that we can get them just where we want them. So what I've done is I've actually done a little bit of a test image just on a bit of scrap paper where I worked out where I wanted my flowers to go. So now I can actually pop my card into the press, and I usually just line up with one of the grid mark, one of the measuring lines on it, so I know my card's going to stay in the same place. And then I can pop my little plan in, and the first flower I need to stamp is the Magnolia blossom. So what I can do is actually work out exactly where from my plan where it's going to be. And as I'm doing with this one, if you decide that where you stamped on your initial plan that you're not happy with that angle, you can always turn it around a bit, but I've still got my positioning right. Now I can pick it up with the press, and then when I stamp it onto my card, it's going to be exactly where I want it. So now I give this, because we're embossing straight away, give that a wipe with our anti-static pad. I'll get our catching sheet out ready. And here we go. So Versamark. Ink up thoroughly. Stamp. Then you will have to take it out and emboss, put the embossing powder on and heat it each time, because we're overlapping the images. We can't sort of layer up a couple of them. So then tip that off. Now we would heat that and then put a mask over that and do our next one. To save time, I've already got one done where I've done the 3 flowers embossed. So now when I pop that in, you'll get the idea of the masking. So, and I'm sorry for those who don't like cutting masks, I've cut all these little masks of flowers. So we can pop that one on our Magnolia, and then we could stamp the Waterlily either side, and again, pop your plan in, work out where you're going to put your Waterlily, pick it up on the press, and then pop your mask in here and you're ready to stamp it. We're moving ahead straight away to doing the moon. So let's pop in some masks over those Waterlilies. Now these are cut out from a post-it notepad, and 2 of them I managed to cut out where there was a bit of sticky on the pad, which means they sit where I want them. And the third one is going to wander all over the place. So now we work out where we're going to have our moon, which I probably should do this before I put the masks in place, but never mind. I was busy talking about masks, wasn't I? So this way you can position this. I can make sure I've got those little beads nice and straight. Pick it up. Oh, how good are those little masks? They just stayed sitting there. And I can also check, because this has got the grid marks on it, I can actually check that I've got those little beads lined up straight with the grid, and then I know that they're hanging straight. Okay, let's ink up with our Versamark. Nice and inky. Put the stamp in position, then press it down. Good press over the whole image, especially around where the masks are, because you're trying to get past where there's that little bit of edge of paper. Lift up, Pop our embossing powder on. Tap with our fine brush and tap on the back, and then I'm just going to have a look across and make sure that we haven't got any little grains where we don't want them. Even a phone, even on silent, still makes noise, doesn't it?
Sorry.
Matthew's trying to hide his phone behind his back so that the buzzing doesn't annoy us. Okay, so now we'll stop to heat that. So I'm heating from underneath. And I can see exactly when it starts to change. I don't want to heat too much near the flowers. So as soon as it changes, I can move on from there. Just having a bit of a look just to make sure that I've got everywhere. We might add a little bit more heat just to a couple of spots and then stop. And now I want to add in the planets from the planet set. So this time I won't use the stamp press. I'm just going to stamp these in place. And do I still need the masks at all? Now working on the glass mat, I can just stick my masks up the top there out of the way until I need them. Let's pop our press away. So for doing the parts of the moon, with the ones that have a more solid edge to them, they actually look better if you soften that edge a bit. These ones look great being crisp, but these two actually look better if you actually soften that a bit. But I didn't make the stamp that way because this way you've got the option of having it crisp if you want to. So I'm going to ink it up on the Versamark. And actually I do need it masked because we're going to be tucking this first one in behind the flower and the moon. But I just need to mask those top ones. Okay, now before I stamp it down, I'll just grab a clean brush and just tap over that edge a bit and take a little bit of Versamark off. Now, I'll probably still need to take a bit off before I actually heat it, but we'll see how that goes. Now, if I line my card up with a grid on the mat, I can also line my stamp up with another point, which means that when I do this moon down below, I'll be able to line it up in the same place. And I'm also going to very quickly stick our next bit of moon shape above that, and we can emboss these ones in one go. Okay, let's lift our masks out of there, get our embossing powder on. I'm flicking all over the place, sorry Matthew. Give ourselves our tap with our little brush. Tap on the back, and now let's have a look. Now that is still a little bit solid, so I'm just going to touch it a bit with the brush and just break that up a little bit. Let's give it another tap on the back, see how it's looking. And we might heat those before we move on to the bottom ones, otherwise I'm likely to put my hand in somewhere where I don't want to. Okay, now repeat the procedure for below the moon. Below the moon, we're stamping a moon. This is going to get very confusing, isn't it? Pop on another little Waterlily mask there. Although, looking at my placement, I'll overlap just a little bit. Let's ink it up. And again, looking at where my grid lines are. So I'm lining up with this line here. Pop that one in. And I really sort of checked these stamps. I must have stamped them with something else that had a little bit of black ink on it. But because we're going with a dark goth look, it's going to be fine. If they've got a little bit of black in. That smudge is probably not going to be fine, but we'll work around that. Okay, move our masks off, get our embossing powder on. Let's have that little tap on the back. And again, just break up that line, that edge there. You could do that with your small brush, or we could have done it with our bigger brush as well. Whichever one you feel more comfortable handling. And now I'm also going to just check, of course, where I drop that stamp, there would be embossing powder sticking to that. So we need to whisk that out of the place. Just a tap on the back to get off any bits that we've flicked off here. I'm trying to look at this, but hoping that you're seeing it as well. Now let's get our powder out of the way now, because that's all of our embossing done. And get this one heated. Okay. Now, of course, because we're white on white, it's looking rather like nothing. But that's okay, because we're about to add colour. Well, black. And I'm going to use a little bit of Perfect Pearl spray rather than water to spread our black ink, just because it'll give it that little bit of shine. And I'm also going to pop a little bit on my mat so I can actually pick that up with my water brush when I want to add extra little bits. So, doing our colouring, you can use just the Uniquely colour markers, but I'm actually choosing to use the black out of the Pentel ones. But I could use either, but it's just a bit bigger nib, so it's going to give me a bit more colour quicker. So whichever one you have is fine. And what we're going to do is actually place a little bit around on one side of all our images and then give it a spritz. And I want to spritz it so that it goes that way. So I'm going to hold the card this way and spritz it out that way, and even tip it that way a bit. We want swirls and smooshes but I have got paper towel standing by because I may need to dry where I'm next going to put colour, so that if I just added the Pentel brush marker here, it's going to wash out. So I actually want it to come on quite strongly, so I don't want the card wet where I'm about to be applying the marker. Now, if I don't want to spritz more water, I can just pick up a bit from my media mat with I'm using my broad Aquash brush here. So just pick up a little bit of water there, because that's got the metallic in it, and just smoosh that into that one. Just so we're not all totally crazy, especially as we go up closer to the edge of the card. But I just don't want that heavy line there, so I'm going to smoosh into that. Okay, let's keep going. So just around the edge of each of the bits of the moon and each of the bits of the petals. Don't do too much in one go, or else your edges dry before you get to them. So if I need a little bit more water, pick up some off my mat. Just smoosh a bit more in there. What I want is these nice swirly sort of patterns. Now I can always come back, if a bit hasn't come up dark enough, I can always come back and add a bit more, but I'll get a general coverage over the whole lot and then see where we need a bit more. And you'll find you'll be able to see, even though it's white embossing on white card, you will be able to see where it is to be able to know where to colour to. Okay, now when I get up to, I'll do one more bit just with the water brush, and then we'll do another spritz. because I really like that wacky look there. Okay, so let's get a goodly amount, how's that sound for English? A goodly amount around there. Turn it this way and even tip it a bit and give it a spritz. Let that just take off. And now I might need to just dry around my last bit of moon before I put in some more black. And I think another spritz. We want to make that go that way a little bit. Oh, excellent. Okay. Now, yes, it should be a little bit darker down there, but that's okay. Just going to dry off my mat. So I'm drying off where I'm about to do more colouring. I'll leave those nice blobs there just doing their thing. Let's dry off our mat. And we'll start doing some more direct colouring onto those flowers. Now I'm just going to keep my paper towel here for cleaning my brushes on. And this time I'm swapping now to the finer Aquash brush. We'll put our lid on our black marker and get out the 2 red shades from the Uniqolour ones. Love this deep burgundy, and the red is just a really good red. So now I'm going to start picking out, and I've got to be very careful not to put my hand in that. If I was working on this myself at home, I would probably actually leave it at this stage for that bit to dry before moving on to colouring all the red. And just add some of this deeper colour into some of the spots. And I'm picturing colouring the moon. I need some colour all around the edges of it to make it stand out more. So I'm picturing having my darkest colour on the inside of all the edges. So I'll put some red on. And I can add some of the plum in there as well. And come in and just smush all that a bit with a water brush. But let it go to a little bit of a highlight there in the middle. So I turn my card around so that I'm working the tip of the brush up against that edge. That way I'm less likely to go over the edge. But I do need to keep a bit of an idea where my blossoms are there so I don't accidentally colour them before I'm ready to. Work around this bit. These brush markers do make it so easy to put colour on. And they blend out beautifully with your water brush. And I'm just cleaning my my Aquash brush off onto the bit of paper towel so that I can have a clean brush for doing the blending. So let's start swinging back around the other edge of the moon. And this is where I've got to start watching. I'm actually going to come from where these petals are so that I'm watching where they are and don't go over them accidentally. So pop that in, pop a little bit of our wine colour in, do some smushing. And I'm going to colour the flowers in the same colours that I'm working with for the moon. Just because I want the card to have a fairly monochrome effect, I don't want to be introducing a lot of colour to it because I really want this red to stand out from the black background. So I'm just looking at where the petals are now and just going around those. And I wasn't going to add the plum in, but I think I will actually, because that's going to give us more definition to the petals. So I've gone from the wine colour through the red and then to the water brush. So put on that wine colour. Then I can use the red brush to blend that into the red. And then use the water brush for the final blending out. I hope that makes sense. Let's just pick up just this bottom edge here, if we missed anything in there. Now it does look a bit odd, but we are going to do some extra shading around there that will pick out that other shape of the moon. Now I'm popping the wine colour to one side because I'm just going to work the red for the flowers. So I'll start in the centre of the Magnolia and then just use my water brush just to tease that centre out. Now again, you can spend as much time doing beautiful blending as you want to. I'm moving through this in a fair hurry because I'm on a limited time frame doing a video, but you could certainly spend lots of time blending these beautifully. I'm just cleaning my brush and coming in with more water just so the petals are a bit delicate on the ends, but also so that I'm not getting hard lines where my watercolouring is finishing. Try and move that black out a bit, but it's not going to play. That's okay. Now let's do some deeper colour for the base of this Waterlily. And you'll see by putting the deeper colour there, suddenly those lighter petals of the Magnolia start to pop. Clean my brush and come in and just do some gentle water shading. Bring that right out to the ends of all those petals. Okay, this is pretty cool. Turn that round and add in red around the base of the Waterlily, which is also the edges of the Magnolia petals. Soften it. And by cleaning my water brush between each of these goes, it just means I'm not adding more colour. I can just manipulate that colour and push it around. Right, so that stage is looking pretty good. But it's wet. So what I've already done is I've already got another one to this stage so that we can now swap over and do some shading on a almost dry one. Let's just give you a little bit of a dry. So now we're going to pop our masks back in place. And I might put the flowers on and then pop the moon over the top. Do send to me. Oh no, I thought I was missing a little Waterlily mask, but it is there. Okay, pop that in. Pop our waterlilies in. Actually, you know, we're barely going to need the waterlilies mask, but I'll put them in anyway. Pop the moon on. This is the main bit that we want masked, and I have just missed trimming a little bit off the end of that, which could make a difference here. So I'm going to come in with my scissors and just trim that extra little bit of paper off. That's being a bit pedantic, I know, but it could make a difference. So pop that in place. Now that also makes a good place for me to be able to hold the card down. So now I'm going to work with a number 10 brush and the Versafine Clair Nocturne ink. And we'll pick up a bit of ink. And we can start on our mask, or we can actually just take a bit off on our mat. And I'm actually going to let it just be a little bit random over the rest, so it's a little bit sort of cloudy looking. Let's move our card around gently. We can go back and pick up some more ink off our mat there rather than going to the ink pad. And now I'm just going to come around that edge with it a little bit stronger. Maybe not the sides. Let's look at it without the sides being done, just top and bottom, and see what we think. By going all the way across, it's starting to tie the two black areas in together. Okay, let's take those masks off. Let's see how we're looking. See how now those are starting to pop out. But I will need to get my cloth and just buff off our moons, because of course the ink has covered those up a bit. But if we just buff those, that white embossing powder will come back. Oh, it's pretty good, isn't it? Okay, let's just give our medium matte a wipe as well. And think, do we need anything else in there? I do want to add the saying in. So I'm just going to bring back my stamp press so I can work out exactly where I want to place this. So I'm going to take that moon out of there. Pop our card in. I always like to line up with something on the grid there, so that in case the card did move, then I can always come in and position it back exactly where it was. So I'm thinking along the bottom here, but I just want to play around with it because I want it to slide in between where those two moons are. Now I can also, again, just check on the grid that I've got myself pretty straight, and that looks good. So now let's go to the Nocturne ink. Make sure I've inked up along the whole stamp. Let the press settle into position and then push down. Let it lift up and swing it away. Oh, that's what it needed. That little bit of swirls there, just to finish it off. So I hope you like that one. It's a little bit different with extra layering and just a bit of a different look for our moon mandala. I do think we need a bit of sparkle in there. We've lost some of our droppers a bit. So let's just clean this off and pop it to one side. Pop our press down there. And I'm just going to come in again with my rag and just polish some of that ink off the droppers there. And then we might just come in with some silver Stickles. I'll just get them, make sure it's flowing nicely on my mat. Not on the mat, on the bit of paper towel. There we go. And throw it around the place. And let's just pick out some of these little gems. Got one here that's nearly empty. There it goes. So doing bigger blobs on the bigger gems and just trying to do some very small ones on the actual dropper chains. And I'm going to stop there. I'm feeling like adding more, but I'm just... Oh, you know, I could keep going. Let's just add some glossy accents on one of the flowers, just to give it a bit more dimension. So very quickly, just on the main Magnolia blossom there. Okay, now I'm happy. Just lifts it a little bit more. Okay, let's bring that one forward onto the black tablecloth so Matthew can get a nice shot of it. And that's our Gothic moon with some flowers in there. Cool. I hope you enjoyed that one. It's a bit of a different look for our moon mandala, but it's nice to bring in the other moon shapes as well, and just combining the watercolouring with the shading to get different looks. We could certainly have done the watercolouring on both sides, would work as well, but just by doing the shading and the watercolouring, it just gives it that little bit of a difference from one side of the card to the other. So, hope you enjoyed that one. Hope you've enjoyed our little exploration of the darker side. And we'll see you again soon for some more card making.